It is just a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing Lea A, Ellermeier, a serial entrepreneur, CEO, an author, an artist, and mom to Will. Most recently, Lea co-founded and is serving as CEO of 2C MedTech, the developer of the Lingual Orthodontic System. She was formerly CEO and co-founder of Replicate Dental Technologies and of Lingualcare, Inc., makers of the Incognito Orthodontic System. Lingualcare was purchased by 3M Company in 2007. She has spent a 30-year career in MedTech and software startups. She holds a BA in political science, Cum Laude, from the University of Texas, El Paso, and an MBA right here in my backyard at Thunderbird School of Management, which actually got merged with where I got my MBA, ASU. So now it's the Arizona State University Thunderbird School of Management. I went to ASU when Thunderbird was still a school because I didn't get accepted, and it was like $25 million an hour, and the state school was much cheaper. And she's the author of Finding the Exit. It's not where you start, it's where you finish. And I found that so profound. And like I say, you've talk about a serial entrepreneur in dentistry. I mean, you founded 2 orthodontic companies and a dental implant company, and you're not even a dentist. How does that happen? I mean, with everything going on with 8 billion people in a million different industries, how did Lea end up starting 2 orthodontic companies and a dental implant company? You got to have a German grandfather, mom, nun, sister, something, some dental voodoo king got a hold of you somehow. Tell us your journey.
Sure. So back in 1999, I had been working in software and had been in software for, at that point, about 10 years. And if you remember, right around 99, 2000, the world was booming with startup companies. I was with a software company that got sold, actually. It was acquired by a systems integrator based out of Detroit. And living in Dallas, I was really not up for a move to Detroit with that company. So I started looking around. And one of the companies I interviewed with was a company called Orthotel, which became Orametrics. And it was really interesting to me. It was the first company I interviewed with where I could tell my mother what the company did. Everything else I had done was very software, complicated. But I could tell my mom, yeah, this is a company that makes technology to make your teeth straighten faster. So Orametrics back then had platform technologies for scanning, intraoral scanning. They had really the first, I don't know if you know this, they won an award in Germany back in the 90s for making the very first full arch intraoral scanner. And that was invented by a gentleman named Rutger Rubert, who's also a serial entrepreneur. He was the founder of Orametrics, German mechanical engineer. And I know Rutger really well. We've worked together for 20 years and we got married 3 years ago. So.
Oh, you married Rutger?
I did.
Now he started natural dental implants.
Dude, yeah. Yeah, so natural dental implants became Replicate Dental Technologies. We morphed it. So that was Rutger became my dental connection. He founded Orametrics. I took a job as VP of Sales and Marketing there at the end of '99. And when they went through some pretty significant changes, we decided at the end of 2000 to step out. We had this idea for lingual orthodontics, bringing it back in the U.S., which was definitely an ambitious plan because most of the orthodontists that I knew at that point, who I'd met through Orametrics, when I told them, they're like, nah, no thanks. Lingual, been there, done that. I don't want to touch it. But, we thought that we had some pretty cool technology that could really change that experience for patients and definitely for the providers too. And so we took that leap and started Lingualcare. We did end up selling it to 3M. And after a short stint working at 3M, which is a fantastic company, by the way, I decided that I wanted to do something entrepreneurial again. And Rutger had this idea for the natural dental implants / replicate technologies. And so we tried to transform implantology, which was a pretty lofty goal. But we thought we could, again, significantly change the patient experience and do something pretty revolutionary in the space. And so if you ask the question, why did I do it when I'm not a dentist? I think dentistry is one of those things where it's a space where a lot of people, you say, oh, I'm going to the dentist. Their first thought is, that can't be good, right? So anything we can do to make dentistry friendlier, more accessible, bring technology to make the patient experience better, to make dentists more successful, I think that's a worthy pursuit.
So then your husband, he's from Germany. So does he live in Dallas now?
No, he lives in Germany.
Oh, that's awesome. What a genius to have a spouse in a different continent. I would get married again if the person lived in a different continent. You should write a new book, How to Get Married While Your Spouse is in a Different Country. I always look at Germany. I had no idea when I started lecturing in 1990 that 30 years later I'd lectured in 50 countries. But I mean, my God, I have more respect for Germany and Japan than any other two countries out there. I mean, like I remember, if you're an American, think about this. Like you'll say things like, well, America is the first country that went to the moon. Yeah, with all captured German scientists. I mean, there wasn't. It's like when Boston won the Stanley Cup. Okay, there wasn't one American on the team. That was Canada, Ukraine, Poland, and Russia.
Right.
Moved. And but I remember when I saw the Space Shuttle Columbia the first time, I thought, they had this big black arrow pointing to the fuel tank. And I'm like, come on, guys, you're NASA, you're astronauts. I don't need that on my car. I mean, I know where the gas tank is in my car, but it's so German. Like when you walk into a German company and you ask one time, where's the bathroom? Someone will sit there and think, well, if someone asks it once, they'll ask it a million times. And you look down on the floor and the blue line says boys, and you just follow the blue lines to the boys' bathroom. The pink one goes to the girls' room. Above every light switch, there's all the instructions of what, I mean, the Germans make Mercedes-Benz, the Japanese make Lexus, and we make the Plymouth Dodge Dart Charger. I mean, they're a whole nother level of, I mean, my God, when you say German engineering, and by the way, this country, when it voted, when it formed as a country, they voted. English beat out German by 2 votes, and Imperial Math beat out Metric by 1 vote. So we were 3 votes away from speaking German and Metric. So we were close to quality at 1776, and then we completely lost it. But I want to go back to historical because podcasters are young kids. A quarter of everyone listening right now is still in dental school. The rest are all under 30. So this is like an advanced dental kindergarten class that you're on right now. And they don't remember the Y2K and all that kind of stuff. But so when you said the end of the boom, so basically from 1994 to the year 2000, there was this problem called Y2K. And that is to save memory space. Instead of saying the year 2020, they just went with 20. So when 1999 turned over to the year 2000, all the computers would have thought it would have been 1901. So everybody was redoing their software, their hardware, their equipment. And it was the boomingest time I've ever seen in my life from 94 to 2000. And no one realized that at the year 2000, everybody was done. And there were no sales in January, there were no sales in February, and March, the whole market collapsed. And then it built back up, and then 10 years later, Lehman's Day, it collapsed again. And we were just about 10 years there. Warren Buffett hadn't bought anything a year before the pandemic and was sitting on $100 billion in cash. Did it smell like Y2K to you? Because you lived through the year 2000. You lived through that market calamity. You lived through Lehman's Day. Did you think that we were headed to another Y2K before this pandemic, and this pandemic was actually just the second punch from a Y2K Lehman's that was getting ready to punch you anyway? Did it smell the same?
It actually caught me very much by surprise, I will say. But I mean, it felt like something was coming. I mean, once you lived through a couple of cycles of stuff that just hits you out of the blue. I mean, I'll give you an example. Orametrics was about ready to close a financing round on September 11th with Lehman Brothers in New York that were in the World Trade Center 3. Okay.
Holy moly.
And so you talk about the way things, shape your life. What happened was that financing didn't close. The company ended up closing the financing October 31st, which was almost a miracle that we got that closed. but the valuation was significantly less. We ended up having to hire a CEO who completely shifted things, and that's why I left. I mean, the whole restructuring of the finances that happened at that time. Back in 2002, when Rutger and I started Lingualcare, you know, I raised a lot of money at that point. Somebody asked me recently how much money I've raised. I would say it's north of $100 million through the years for different software companies and, dental enterprises. So I'm no stranger to walking around with my hand out. When we started Lingualcare, we had a very hard time raising financing. I found out a year later when I went to this Price Waterhouse conference that venture capital had dropped 97% between 2002 and 2003. Okay, that was, and so, you know, you adapt, right? And so I guess that would be my message to anybody who's out there right now trying to figure it out. You know, it feels like, oh my gosh, this is the end of the world. We're never going to make it. I've certainly had many of those moments myself as an entrepreneur. You know, you sort of live on the edge. And the other thing I would point out is every dentist is pretty much an entrepreneur. I mean, you're going to set up a business, and, you know, and so you're going to have to wait for things like this to happen. You have to know it's going to happen. The global pandemic, that one really did throw me for a loop. But again, we pivoted, we adjusted. We actually started selling air and surface pathogen reduction systems instead of orthodontic appliances for a time. So, you know, that's just part of the entrepreneurial journey, I think, is having to figure it out.
And I just want to say I want to switch to ortho. Yeah, the problem with lingual orthodontics for me when I was little back in '87 is that it'd be fine on 4 or 5 people, but you get that one person's got a little ADD and her tongue starts playing with it. And once the tongue starts playing with it, you have to take the whole swing set out of the backyard or she won't quit swinging. And they would lick that thing until the end of their tongue was raw. But it did show the importance of clear aligners. It did prove the concept that people don't like to look like, you know, they can catch the AM FM radio station on their teeth. Right. And my gosh, of all the 12 specialties, you know, most general dentists are competing. You know, they worry about a DSO, but it's really the mom and pop dental office across the street that's kicking their butt the most, you know. But my gosh, orthodontists, they're under attack. They got Smiles Direct Club. They got Invisalign. They got, I mean, I can't even think of a specialty that's under more pressure. I mean, certainly not endodontics or oral surgeons or implantologists. How do you see this orthodontic market?
You know, I will tell you that when I saw products like Invisalign come on the market in the beginning, the thing that surprised me about it, and I don't want to say you throw out Invisalign under the bus, I think it's a great company, that people were willing to accept a lower standard of care. Because usually when you see changes in medicine or in dentistry, you're expecting an elevated standard of care, right? For products that are going to come in and really take it to the next level, not people being willing to accept a compromised outcome. And that surprised me. I mean, when we started Lingualcare, we really believed, hey, if we can make lingual orthodontics friendly, people are going to go for this because you can treat much more complicated cases. The patient's going to have a better outcome. And isn't it really all about having a case that's good enough to present for your board exams? And that turned out not to be the case. And now, you know, do-it-yourself orthodontics, because I'm in dentistry, friends of mine will ask, oh, what do you think of Smile Direct Club? Do you think I should get this? And I said, absolutely not. Do not start moving your teeth without a dentist in the mix and someone to take an x-ray and look and see where things are at. I mean, I'm actually a little bit shocked by it, that people don't see that moving your teeth is actually a big deal, right? It's not just, I'm going to put these aligners on and magically my crowns are going to be straight. Something's happening underneath your gum line that you should be aware of.
That is interesting. That usually when there's a new technology, I mean, I always tell people the 5 finger. And by the way, I get asked to sign NDAs all the time, non-disclosure. And come on, guys, I'm a dentist for 32 years. I own a dental office. I have a dental magazine. I podcast 1,500 people. How can I sign a non-disclosure agreement when you're going to talk about something that I've been thinking about and talking about for 30 years? And plus, I don't like feeding the attorneys. But I always held up my hand. I said, first of all, if you're on Shark Tank, they're going to ask, is it faster? Is it easier? Is it higher quality? Is it lower cost? Is it smaller and more convenient? And then you always come back and say, well, it's actually more expensive for less people, costs a lot more money, and it's bigger. And I'm like, well, you don't need an NDA. You need to go back to the drawing board. And it is very strange that, faster, Smiles Direct Club or whatever, faster, easier, higher quality? No. But it's interesting.
I mean, it's only faster if you're willing to accept a compromised result, right? I mean, yeah, can I move your tooth? I had this conversation with somebody the other day. I said, you know what? I could glue 3 brackets on your teeth and put a little wire in and fix that tooth in about 7 days. How can Smile Direct Club be faster? I mean, obviously I should just say I'm not gluing brackets on anybody's teeth. But at the end of the day, it's become about advertising and about perception and not about truth, standard of care, and caring about your long-term occlusion and the effects that these types of treatments are going to have on your bite, on your jaw position. And people are looking at it more as an aesthetic procedure, like tooth whitening, and less of something that's really going to have a long-term impact on their oral health.
So now you're back with is 2C MedTech your baby right now? Is this
company? Yes, it is.
Okay, so tell us your journey. So you did the Orometrics, you sold that to 3M, and
Lingualcare. So I started at Orometrics. I left, started Lingualcare, sold that. We started this company for Replicate Dental Technologies to transform implantology. I tell people now I took a wrong turn into dental implants. I've now come back into the orthodontic space. We had this idea that you should be able to make a custom tooth for a complete root and crown for a patient in the age of 3D scans, rapid prototyping, all these great materials that are available. Why surgically shape a patient for an implant when you can easily make a custom implant for the patient? So we spent 7 years working through this process, working with FDA. And in October of this past year, 2019, we, I could spend an entire podcast hour telling you everything we had to go through with FDA to get this to a conclusion. A dental implant that was shaped like a tooth. The bottom part was, and when I say shaped like a tooth, like there were 2 or 3 roots on the tooth, right? So it looked actually like a real tooth. Bottom portion was titanium, top portion was zirconia. They were fused together into this interesting process with glass and a vacuum. Basically, they were bonded into a single piece. But the same titanium has been used in implants for years. Same zirconia that's been used in crowns for years. We treated lots of patients in Europe with the device. We had a 97% success rate. We get all the way to the end with FDA, and they did not clear it. They did not clear it.
But why? But why though? Do you think their big money blocked it from somewhere else? Was it incompetence? Why?
Why?
What would your summary be?
I think it's always easier to say no than it is to say yes to something that's new, something that's radically different. Like I said, we had good results. FDA made us jump through so many hoops. So the last summer leading up to that October, we were answering their questions. And one of the things they had asked us for was data on patients for 12 months. So 6 months of healing, 6 months of loading, take the bone level measurements. We had tracked 40, I think it was 43 patients. When they got our data, they came back and said, well, we know we said 12 months, but really we'd like 18 months. Can you get all those patients back in and take another x-ray? right? So try getting 43 patients in over the summertime in 30 days and get their x-rays. We were missing 2 patients. So FDA came back and said, loss to follow-up for us is implant failure. So we're going to add 2 more to the failure box. Then they said, how many patients did you intend to treat but not treat at the time it was to be placed? Because the way we did it was we did a scan of the patient first, and then we made the tooth, and so on the day of the extraction, the dentist would pull the tooth and put our implant in. And that if something happened, if the bone were broken or if it was compromised in any way, if there was an infection in the socket, our protocol was, hey, don't place that implant. Don't put it in there. And so we had 3 patients where the dentist had decided, you know what, I don't feel comfortable putting this in immediately. And then in those same cases, if they had planned to put in an immediate screw type implant, they wouldn't have placed it either. Okay. So FDA counted those 3 intent to treat as implant failures. And when they added those 5 additional failures, 2 patients that didn't show up and 3 patients that we intended to treat but did not, they determined that we were outside the range of what they considered to be safe and effective.
Okay, help me out with this, because I don't like talking about religion, politics, sex, violence, all that kind of stuff, but we're talking business. I've been a libertarian my whole life, because I'm a student of history, and it looks like for 5,000 years, the government has not been anybody's friend. They've been the source of all the problems. My house, my McMansion that I bought, the American lady in here, like you, made millions, had her deal. She had brain cancer, and an American pharmaceutical company had a treatment, but it wasn't FDA approved, and she couldn't get in on the study. And then finally, her doctor said, well, if you just moved to Denmark, you could just go to any doctor there and get this American pharmaceutical company. And I understand the value of the FDA saying, well, if I had brain cancer, I probably don't have a brain, but let's say ear cancer. I got ears. I know that. If I had cancer and they said, okay, there's 2 drugs, this one's FDA approved and this one isn't, I would go with the FDA approval. I don't have a problem with that. What I have a problem with is how all their laws end up justifying that not only do we not approve it, you cannot do it. And if you do it, we will kidnap you and put you in a cage, and we'll put you in jail, and where you have about a 6 times greater chance of dying. Yeah. And then I look at all these millennials, and every time they have a problem, they like run to the government like, "Mommy, help us!" And it's like, that's not your mom. That's the devil. That's the mob. I mean, look at even in the current unrest. I mean, so you have your blinkers not out. Well, there's a license tag right there. Why don't you just send them a notice that your blinker is out, and maybe you have to prove that you fix it in 30 days. But oh, hell no, that ain't enough. Your blinker's out. We're pulling you over, and we're going to walk up to your car with guns pulled. And if you reach for something, we're going to shoot you. And it's like, we went from a blinker not working to you just shot a guy. I mean, I've been a registered libertarian my whole life. I refuse to buy into the 2-party mob where one robbed the bank and one drove the getaway car. But back to the FDA, I mean, why did the lady that I bought my house from, as an American, why did she have to go to another country to get a drug made in America for her own disease? And do you think the FDA should be an advisory? Like, okay, Lee, we're not going to give you approval, but we're not going to block you from selling it to 331 million Americans. And if one of those 331 million Americans gets it, well, they can look at the barcode and find out if it's FDA approved or not. But it's not FDA, it's force. It's force, kidnapping, go to jail, FDA. What do you think of the FDA?
I really don't have as strong as opinion about them as you do, but I can tell you that I think here's what happened. Okay, so think about this in the bigger context. Most innovation that happens in medical and dental technology is coming from smaller companies like the ones that I've started, okay? So we go out to investors, we raise millions of dollars, they put their money into this innovation because they believe in it. We get all the way down a negotiated path that FDA had agreed to that we worked on for 7 years, okay? 7 years, almost $30 million later, they decide not to pass it. So who loses? I'll tell you who loses, and that's the consumer. Because next time that guy that put in his $5 million is not going to put it into a dental company. He's going to put it into something that's going to feel safer to him, that has, less risk. So at the end of the day, if our implant fell out of your mouth, if it didn't integrate for some reason, you would like have it in your hand, right? We never drilled into the bone. That was the beauty of it, right? It went back into the socket where the old one came out. So when I look at FDA, because I actually asked one of the people at FDA, I said, where is the risk here? Right? No one's going to die. It's titanium. It's integrating 97% of the time. In fact, I think it's less risk because we're not going to drill into your bone. There's no chance anybody's going to hit a nerve. And by the way, and this is where I think it went wrong, by the way, any general dentist can do this procedure. You don't have to go to an oral surgeon. Is there some grand conspiracy at FDA? I don't think so. I think it's just risk management. I think it's always easier to be the person who said no than the person who said yes, and then there was a problem. And ours was different enough that they were nervous about it. And at the end of the day, I mean, we had a call actually with the head of the dental branch the day before they decided to not clear it. And he said, what I really feel better about is if you just withdrew your application and started all over again and negotiated a new clinical study with us. And I mean, we had done part of the study here with Texas A&M. We did with German, and our data was, I think, very good, high quality, better than what other implant companies are putting forth to put new implants in the market. So I don't know, but I think at the end of the day, the consumer loses.
Yeah.
And it was heartbreaking. I mean, I got to tell you, it was completely heartbreaking because that happened 2 days later. It's kind of personal. My mom fell. Okay. We lost our funding for the company. We had to declare insolvency on the 4th of November, and my mother died on the 8th. So for me, it was just this horrible waterfall of loss. And it's hard for me to distinguish some of those feelings of loss from, okay, well, how much of this is to the FDA and how much of it is due to the fact that my mom died in the same, the next breath practically. As an entrepreneur, I had near-death experiences with companies before where we were very close to losing financing, where we didn't see a path forward, but at the last minute we found something. I had always pulled it out of the fire. It's the very first time as an entrepreneur and working in 7 different entrepreneurial companies that we didn't make it. And it was a very sobering experience for me.
God, being Irish, just the word sober hurts. Well, that was just a nightmare. I'm sorry about all that. It's I am a realist. I mean, when I look back at history, I always tell my 4 boys that every 100 years is better than the century before. I mean, the pyramids were 5,000 years ago, and I think we're halfway. I think it's going to be about 5,000 more years before we finally get somewhat intelligent. But I remember. Well, anyway, not enough of the FDA. They're just government in general. But you call this company 2C MedTech, but your husband had, I think he called his company 2C Dental. What is the 2C? What's the 2C? Like to see with my eyes, to see medical technology, to see dental?
So we started with 2C Dental, and our product that we made is called the 2Clear system. And it's basically a combination of very super thin, clear brackets and clear aligners that go together, again, to make aesthetic treatment more efficient, get better results, or reduce the number of aligners that a patient would need. So we wanted to have this hybrid system, and that came from Germany. So Rutger, when we started it, we called it 2C Dental. As we got close to launching in March, COVID hit and all of our customers closed their doors, right? Nobody's open for business. And so at the same time, we had this opportunity to work with Casper on their continuous air and surface pathogen reduction system. And what we found was we had a whole bunch of customers buying it that had nothing to do with dental. I mean, I've sold this to airports, office buildings, law firms, homes, physical therapy offices. And so we started doing business as 2C MedTech just so it didn't look, myopically like we were only here for dental. We sold to a lot of dentists too, but we found that there was this huge, market of people who were interested in this technology to protect their environment. So that's where 2C MedTech came from. But in Germany, we're still very focused on the dental space.
So I always tell this story, and I'm sure a lot of listeners are tired of hearing it, but I'll never forget when I'm out here in Phoenix, Arizona, and really close to ASU. You remember Ahwatukee?
Yeah, sure.
Do you remember that, Ahwatukee? It's the part of Phoenix behind the South Mountains. So 90% of Phoenix is north of the mountains, and if you go south of it, there's a little sliver of people down there. That's where I am. And but the bottom line is, I went to Intel one day. This is before 9/11 and back in the day when you could go to a company like that. And a patient of mine took me in there and did the tour, and I thought it was so amazing that employees would walk in, they'd take off their clothes, they'd go shower, they'd get dressed up like Neil Armstrong to do a moonwalk, and then they go work on your Pentium chip, and the air was filtered to 1 part per billion. Yeah. And then you would leave Intel and drive across the street to Chandler Hospital with your oral surgery buddy, and they would drive their Porsche in the parking lot, get out, walk across in their shoes, ride the elevator up, and they might wash their hands for 10 minutes, but they had the same shoes on that they just walked through a parking lot. And I thought to myself, damn, a hospital is like 1,000 times more dirty than a chip manufacturing plant. And then you start talking to the CDC people, and they say, yeah, actually, like 200 to 300,000 people, 300,000 Americans die each year going into the hospital and picking up a secondary infection and all this kind of stuff like that. And now you're talking about this new Casper, CASPR, compact plus hospital grade disinfection. I mean, you would have had me if you would have said Intel grade disinfection. But when you said hospital grade disinfection, I'm like, that's like the dirtiest place in America. That's where 200,000 to 300,000 people get their last eukaryote, prokaryote, or virus that kills them. What do you think of the modern day hospital infection?
Well, so this product was actually designed to combat healthcare acquired infections because it's a huge problem, as you pointed out. People are dying from it. And these days, insurance companies don't want to pay for it. So the hospital is on the hook to pay the cost of getting you better if you get MRSA inside your hospital. So Casper was actually developed to work in the background in the HVAC system to put these oxidizing molecules out into the environment and take care of that. So that's what we wanted to bring to dentistry. But I will tell you, the founder of Casper, Dr. Christoph Sushi, actually said to me, if I had to have surgery, I want to have it at a Coca-Cola plant in Atlanta because that's the cleanest place I've ever been, which is kind of, funny when you think about it. But yes, having air and surfaces clean, and particularly in a place like a hospital where you've got a lot more bio burden than you have in a normal space, and in dentistry where you've got a lot of aerosol generating procedures. I mean, I saw a statistic where if you're doing a cleaning, I know they're not doing this anymore, with the ultrasonic, you've got particles flying 15 feet from the chair. And where are those going? They're going into your ventilation system. They're landing on surfaces, and they can't hand scale forever. So how are we going to address taking care of the particles that are being generated in dental procedures, long term? And I think COVID has just highlighted that, but it wasn't as if that problem didn't exist before. Right?
Okay, you keep saying Casper, CASPR. I'm thinking obviously it's Casper the Ghost. That's the only Casper I know. Are you talking about Casper the Ghost, or what exactly is CASPR?
Casper stands for Continuous Air and Surface Pathogen Reduction.
Now I'm sorry I asked.
Yeah, it really rolls off the tongue.
So say it again. Continuous
Air and Surface Pathogen Reduction.
Air and Surface Pathogen Reduction.
Yep.
The
idea is that it's working in the background like Casper the Ghost, right? I mean, they weren't choosing Casper the Ghost as their brand, but I've had other doctors use that expression to their patients saying, hey, it's you can't really see it, it's invisible, it's in the back, but it's continuously working in our environment to make it safer.
And so that's your new big deal in Dallas, American. You said Casper's a big deal here, whereas your orthodontic stuff is right now it's more of a bigger deal in Germany. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, but we're going to roll out the orthodontic products here in the U.S. This quarter, the Two-Clear system. And we've actually had some other companies come to us and talk about products, because I think one of the things that we do well is we understand how to bring new products into the market. We understand, sales and marketing and communication and training. And so I think that we will continue to bring innovations into the market that serve our customers. And that's why I think Casper is not a complete departure in the dental market, because dentists need this technology too. I mean, maybe much more so than other industries. So they're not completely incompatible.
Wow. That is really amazing. So where are we at in this pandemic? I mean, I think all the dentists, we always get in the corner. We all drink the same purple Kool-Aid. We're all reading the same stuff. And it's kind of good to go outside of the bubble. You are a business entrepreneur, artist, mother. I mean, you're an amazing person. Where are we at in this pandemic? Because if you go back to March, they were saying, well, the Spanish influenza is big in the spring. It died out in the summer, but it came back in the fall. And then during the summer, my epidemiology friends at ASU said, well, that was influenza, and we don't really see that seasonal thing. This is a new virus. This is the coronavirus. And now you're seeing breakouts increasing again in Europe, but but you got other variables. Is it a fall? Is it coming back because it's the fall, or is it because they're opening up all these schools? Where do you see dentistry in Dallas? That's where you're at right now, right? In Dallas? Yeah. And what I love about you the most, seriously, is that since you went to the Thunderbird School of Management, you stayed an Arizona Cardinals fan, and you hate the Dallas Cowboys. That's what I love about you. How you
Cowboys, no Rangers, yeah.
Where you'll never watch the Cowboys play again. But where do you think we are in this pandemic? It's tomorrow's the first day of October. 9 months later, what does it look like to you now?
Well, I will tell you, I just got back from Germany 2 days ago. And the way the Germans have dealt with the pandemic, I think, has been pretty great. They immediately instituted policies across the country and every healthcare environment where they were consistent. It wasn't, hey, let's all figure it out individually. The Robert Koch Institute of Health said, here's how it's going to be. This is our treatment protocol. And they had fewer deaths, I think, than any country in the world. Where are we at in Dallas? Our numbers are going up again. And I think some of that's fatigue, right? I mean, particularly I have a son who just graduated from college, pretty bummed out that he didn't get to have a ceremony. But he and his friends.
Is that Will?
That's Will. Yep. Will graduated from University of California, Santa Barbara, with a degree in physics. And, it's hard to leave California and come back to Dallas. It's like, oh, wait a minute, Santa Barbara, Dallas. But from the pandemic standpoint, I think that we're going to continue to see numbers go up because people just can't maintain this level of diligence. I don't think they just can't. I mean, businesses can't maintain. Travel's really sad. You go to the airport, there's almost nobody there. I don't know how they're going to make it if we don't, start living again. It seems like the strain that came from New York was much deadlier. That what they're calling the Texas strain appears to be more infectious, but less lethal. I think we're better at dealing with the outcome. So, I think things are going to stay weird for a while. I expect the numbers to keep going up in terms of infection, but I don't know about, mortality. It feels like we've gotten that treatment piece down a little bit better than we had before. People can only be super diligent for so long. I don't know. In Germany, they don't have nearly the cases that we have here. Spain and France, yes. But, the world is somewhat flat, right? So you just can't stop people from traveling from place to place. So they're just going to do it. So until we have a vaccine, I think things are going to be difficult for everybody. And we just have to continue to do our best to try and adapt and, bring in PPE and other technologies into dentistry high speed evacuators to make it as safe as you possibly can, but you're just never going to get to 100%.
I was sad when you brought up that Will was a physics major because I love math and physics the most, and you made me realize I'm so old. When I graduated from Creighton in physics, there was only 3 laws of thermodynamics. Now there's 4. They added a 0th law. It's like, you're old when they've added another law to the 3 laws of thermodynamics, and now they have the 0th law.
You went to Nebraska?
Creighton University. Because you're a Nebraska Cornhuskers girl, right?
I'm from Nebraska.
Really?
I am.
Lincoln or?
Hastings.
Hastings? I know exactly where Hastings, Nebraska is. Did you ever get to meet the Warren Buffett, the Oracle of Omaha?
I did not, but I would love to. So
that brings back a whole nother nightmare because I was so young and dumb. It was 1980, and my first business class, and the head of the business guy obviously knew Warren Buffett and the Oracle, and he came and talked, and for 10 credit points, we had to summarize what we thought of this guy. And I wrote that he was a complete idiot because it was 1980. I was all into the Nifty 50 and Xerox and Kodak. And I'm like, well, what do you think about all this high technology? And he's like, if you can't explain it with a number 2 pencil on a 5x7 business card, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm investing in C's candies. And I just thought, this guy's an idiot. And what I should have done is canceled college, taken my tuition money, bought 1 share of Berkshire Hathaway, and then gone surfing and working at Taco Bell my whole life. But just what an amazing man that was. So when the pandemic started, there were a lot of dentists on Dental Town that thought that Germany was insane and Sweden had the best idea of just laissez-faire, herd immunity, don't do anything, and let it blow through its course. Now that, and of course, 9 months ago, no one knew anything. I mean, you can't predict the future. So now, 9 months later, was Sweden's let it go, herd immunity versus Germany, and because I know we can't talk about the United States, or everybody will start crying, and they all turn into little muffins. And did you just say America wasn't perfect? But between Germany and Sweden, what does it look like now after 9 months of this experiment?
For the people who lost their relatives in Sweden, I'm sure that they've got probably a different opinion than I do as an outsider. I thought that Germany did a great job of keeping it under control, of managing, to have very few deaths, to have very few infections, and their economy didn't suffer hugely. I mean, they somehow they found a good balance. They figured out how to wear masks in public, how to keep businesses open, restaurants are open. In Germany, yes, people are wearing a mask, but generally speaking, everybody's open and it's working. So I don't think that the difference between what Sweden did and what Germany did was that big of a difference in terms of like businesses functioning. What they didn't do in Sweden was enforce the mask policy, and I think that ended up in a lot more people dying, which is unfortunate.
And the mask policy at the very beginning, they were trying to guilt shame you not to buy a mask. Don't wear a mask. They need them in the hospital. What are you wearing a mask for? So the government comes out and shames anybody wanting a mask and give them all the hospital. And then they do a 180 and go tell everybody they have to start wearing a mask. So crazy times. Back to dentistry, my favorite meeting in the world is the FDI meeting in Cologne, Germany every other year. America's a... IDS, International Dental Show. And America is very fragmented because they got 50 states. Every state wants to have their own state meeting, and I get all that. But Europe is just, they're like, hey, look, it takes between concept, prototype, manufacturing, it's about a 2-year product cycle. Let's just have one monster meeting every other year in Cologne, Germany. And Cologne, Germany is my favorite spot in Europe. I mean, it was the most eastern edge of the Roman Empire, so you still have the Roman walls. it's the best place. You can get the best German food and the best Italian food in all of Europe right there. It tastes the same as it does in Venice or Rome. But what I love the most is the people, because they all know at that show that nobody knows how the train works, how to get a ticket. And you'll be sitting there, lost at some train station, and some little 12-year-old girl will punch the buttons for you and help you get the ticket. But the biggest dental company in America, Dentsply Sirona, just said they're not going to that next meeting in March. And if Dentsply Sirona pulled out, don't you think that will pull the legs out of that meeting and everyone else will start canceling? Or do you think they'll wait till the last minute, like maybe there's a big vaccine in February and people start going back? Or do you think the Cologne meeting is written off?
It's going to be hard without big sponsors like Dentsply Sirona there. I've gone to IDS every year for many, many years. You're right. It's so much fun, right? And people serve coffee in the booth. I love that. Oh, would you like an espresso, right?
Coffee. Yeah. They serve whiskey, vodka. Did you not see that?
No, they do. Yes.
They have hard liquor and
a little later in the day. I think that the show, if they lose any more of the bigger sponsors, that it will cancel. And I think it'll also depend very much on what the infection rates in Europe look like. Right now you cannot go to Germany from the United States. The only reason I can go is because I'm married to a German. And I have to show up with my marriage certificate and prove that I am married to a German.
And they know you're serious because the one thing I love my Germans, I love them all, but whenever you tell them a joke, they just get confused. They're just like their eyebrows crunch, and I always wonder, are there German comedians? Do they have German comedy shops? Because there seem to be about as serious as the Japanese. They don't seem to be the Comedy Central type.
They're pretty German, pretty serious, and I have seen some German cabaret where people were laughing, but since it was in German, I don't speak the language, I didn't understand it. So I can't tell you if it was truly funny or not.
I'm still waiting for the first German to come up to me and tell me any joke where I laugh and he laughs too. And I always tell the Germans, you can relax now. We don't have to do dentistry around the clock, but my gosh, that meeting is so intense. And I want to tell two things to the kids. I have no less than 10 friends who went to the Cologne meeting. And the neat thing about the Cologne meeting is if you just walk down the aisle at your normal speed when you're out on a morning walk, and for the 5 days of the convention, if you maintain that speed, you couldn't even walk past every booth. It is just crazy. There's 100,000 dentists from every single country, and I've heard this story, and I've seen it, not just in dentistry 10 times, even clear back at Creighton, where, where somebody goes there and somebody from, let's say, South Korea, and he's coming to that show, and he's got this great product, and he only sells it in South Korea, and he's kind of looking for a vendor, and some American will say, okay, well, I'll buy the U.S. distribution rights for this company for $1, and as long as I sell over, say, $100,000 a year, you can only sell this in the United States through me. And then they get back there, and they know, I'm going to have Gordon look at it, my teacher in my dental school. Next thing you know, it doesn't have to be a massive product, but I mean, my gosh, if you picked up 5% of Burr's impression, and the next thing they know, he gets $1 million a year commission because that little product made in Korea that he signed a contract at Cologne. And I mean, it's just, there's more money made there in dentistry. And you always see all the, you'll be looking at an instrument, you're like, that's cool. And you look to your right and like, oh my God, that's Dan Fisher from Ultradent. He's down here looking at it. And you look to the left and it's like, oh my God, that guy. It's like the CEOs of all the biggest companies around the world are looking for, am I summarizing this right?
No, it's exactly right. Cologne is like no other trade show. And the only thing I can compare it to is back in the day in software, we had Comdex in Las Vegas, where they took over, Las Vegas Convention Center, which is huge, and almost every hotel in town. And it was every software, hardware product you can think of. Cologne is like that, but it's only about dentistry, and everybody knows to come there. And you're right, all the decision makers are there. It's not just a bunch of sales guys. All the CEOs are there. The board of directors people are there. If you want to get something done, And like, when we would go to IDS, we would start booking the calendar early. And people would say, oh, are you going to be at IDS? What about Wednesday? What about Thursday? Those are the vendor days. And then, of course, you've got all the dentists. But they have one day reserved just for business meetings where there are no dentists in the hall. It's only for that kind of networking that you're describing. It's pretty amazing.
And what I also love about it is I love going around the world the most because it's only one species. It's got a very tiny variance. They all have the same problems, but I don't care if it's making a windowsill, a toilet, or a dental filling. It's just how they solve the same problem slightly differently. And the variance of dentists from, there's 1 million dentists around the world, probably 2 million if you count the ones that are really a dentist in the village but have no training. It's just, I compare it to the bar scene in Star Wars. I mean, that's the only analogy. But and I got one more tip you have to do is the Germans, everything is faster, easier, higher quality. So they always try to tell you that your ticket, you get to go on the fast high-speed train. But, dude, you're from Kansas. You don't want to go on a high-speed train. You want to go on the cheapest train, and it follows the river, and it's just gorgeous. You get in a bullet train and fly to Amsterdam, you might as well fly there. You didn't see a thing. But if you get on, and when you try to get in on that train, they're so helpful. Like, oh, no. You got the first class. You can go on the good train. It's like, no, I want the crappy old 100-euro train by the river, the creek, the whole 9 yards. My gosh, that Cologne meeting, you're right. Every decision maker, anybody who can make the decision by your company to tell you. But the other thing is, I like the 2-year space because they're all not there telling you what they're working on. They've had a 2-year cycle. And it's all planned on the 2-year cycle. Okay, you got an idea. Okay, I need a prototype in quarter one. And then, and by the time they show up to Cologne about a week ago, everybody's ready for this new product launch. I do think we should somehow get back to orthodontics. Since you've started 2 orthodontic companies, I should try to get focused. So in America, you're working on this Casper product. What would you tell my townies right now that they need better air filtration? How much does this system cost? How do you install it? Do you buy it direct from you? Is it through a dealer?
So 2C MedTech, we're a distributor for Casper. There are 2 different ways you can have it in your practice. There's a piece that goes into your ventilation system that actually your HVAC guy would install. Or there's a little mobile unit that looks kind of like a space heater that you can plug in and it runs continuously. The cost, varies between $1,200 and $1,800 depending on, what the configuration is.
$1,200 to $1,800?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
So it doesn't replace filtration completely, but I think it works hand in hand with filtration, right? Because the only thing that gets filtered is what is actually in the air. Some things land on surfaces, and what Casper does is it cleans air and surfaces, which is good. And it's hard when you've got busy staff to cover everything. And you also want to address what's in the air immediately. So that's my pitch on Casper. I think it's a great product. But I will tell you, we are going to launch the 2-Clear system for orthodontics here in the U.S., this new hybrid approach. You can find it at our website, 2C MedTech, or on 2-Clear system. And like I said, it's a combination of brackets that are about 1.4 millimeters thick, little very clear self-ligating brackets, and aligners that you put on over the top of them after the wires come out of the bracket. So it's a really slick system. Patients like it. It widens the indications for aligners. And so the unique thing about it is it's a bracket, and then it becomes an aligner attachment after the wire is removed. And it reduces the number of aligners that you need to complete treatment.
Okay, and I'm kind of always kind of a suspect of any aligner from Dallas because that's where it was born. I mean, if you go to Clear Aligner on Wikipedia, I mean, it started with that guy in Dallas. I mean, did you know who I'm talking about?
I did not know clear aligners were invented in Dallas. I did not know that. I always think
It was a Pakistani. Let me try to pull up.
He did it at
It's what?
Lea A from Align. No. Yeah.
What did you say about Align?
No, I'm sorry. Well, didn't Align? I mean, I know that there were aligners out there beforehand, but didn't they? I mean, Align really brought them to the forefront.
It was Zia Christie.
Yeah, Zia just.
Muhammad Zillah Khan Christie. I'm trying to get him on the show. Do you know him?
I know Zia.
You know Zia Christie?
Yeah.
In Dallas?
I don't think he's living in Dallas, is he?
Well, he made so much money. He was the founder of Align Technology. He probably lives on Mars or Pluto in the top suite. But oh my God, I would love to get that guy in there. Muhammad Ziaullah Khan Christie, Pakistani American investor and business executive, founder of just everything. But it's just amazing that you're another high tech ortho company out of Dallas. I mean, there must be something. I guess no one's watching the Cowboys play football, so they're just spending more time on math and physics. But
That's right.
so briefly again, that two clear systems. Say it again. What are you seeing in the ortho market where you want to bring a two clear system in? How does this fit in the model that you've seen?
Okay, so I think that there's an expectation now in the market because of all these companies like Align, like Candid, Smile Direct Club, that everybody should be able to be treated with aligners. So patients walk in with an expectation, I want my teeth straightened, I want them straightened with aligners. And this extends down into, 12-year-olds. So how can you treat those patients with aligners? Where it's not going to be, a 50 aligner case, and they're going to need all these attachments and, multiple refinements. So we looked at that with one of our partners in Germany, actually, who's treated, several thousand Invisalign patients over the years. And he was actually the one who invented the system because he wanted to treat kids with aligners, but he needed something else to help. And they just weren't going to be compliant and they didn't want to have 50 aligners. So the idea was, let's put these super clear brackets on and put a wire in, an 012 or 014 round wire for the first 3 or 4 months, get the big vertical movements done, get basic alignment, pull the wire out, scan the patient, and then make a series of aligners to finish the patient. The idea was, how can we use brackets to do what they do the best and aligners do what they do the best, right? So those smaller refining movements are great for aligners. The bigger movements are wonderful for brackets. So combining those together to basically be able to treat a wider variety of patients, including adolescent patients, with aligners.
Well, the
elevator pitch. I need to work on that. I need to get more.
No. I wanted you to come on the show for several reasons. I mean, really, you are a legend, but I think that we should bring back. Well, I know him as a doctor. He's not one doctor. He's two. Dr. Frederick Weidu. Is it Weidu? Weidu.
Well, in German, it's pronounced Vidu, like V-do. Yeah.
Okay. And doctor, because he has 2 doctorates?
Yes. And in Germany, however many doctors you get are professors. I had one customer at our implant company who was doctor, professor.
Wow.
So not enough.
Well, I would love, is it Friedrich or Friedrich?
Yeah. He's a character. You'd love him.
Well, you know what? I own Dental Town and Orthotown, but Orthotown, I can't go on to it because it's only for orthodontists only. If you're not but he could go on there and talk to 10,800 American orthodontists. And what I think he should do is have him come on the show and do a podcast. And also, I really have enjoyed podcasting dentists from all around the world because I mean, dentists in Singapore and China see things differently than they do in Australia and Canada. I mean, they just do. I was talking to a guest earlier where, when you go to China, they don't have dental insurance because they have the same number of dentists as America. They have 150,000 dentists in both countries, but they have 1,300,000,000 people, and they have 300 million people. And every time I go to lecture in China, I always get the same lecture where dentists say, well, if you eat chocolate and drink Coca-Cola and don't brush and floss your teeth and get 10 cavities, why should your boss pay for those? Why should the government pay for those? You should pay for those. And insurance is moral hazard. And maybe if you had to pay for all them fillings, you'd quit drinking Dr. Pepper and eating Hershey's chocolate bar. So, I love the way the whole world sees the same problem with these little differences. So I love getting on Germans because, number one, their quality is Mercedes-Benz, and the Americans think they're Mercedes-Benz because they've never been to Germany. And if you've never been to Germany, like Japan, you can walk all the way across Tokyo and not see a piece of trash, a piece of graffiti, and you could get in the train and drive across the whole country with a clear sack of $100 bills in your hand, and nobody would even notice it or look at it. So I love the variance to see what's possible. I'd love to get Friedrich on. But you know why I really wanted to get you on the most?
Tell me.
We keep, when I got out of school May 11, 1987, I had my dental office open by September 21st. It took me 133 days, and I didn't have any money because my mom and dad were Catholic. They had 7 kids in like 4 days, so there wasn't a lot of extra money to go around. I walked into the place, and he said, I want $15 a square foot for 3 years. And I said, I'll give you $20 a square foot for 5 years, but you do my build out. He said, okay. Walked over to Healthco, which was out of Dallas. That was the biggest dental supply company, was Healthco out of Dallas. And I said, will you put in all brand new equipment? I don't have a dime, and we'll break it over a 60-month lease, and at the 60th payment, I'll own it. They said, sure. And I opened up my office, and I worked 7 to 7, 7 days a week until Pastor Don Snyder from the Lutheran Church walked across there and said, our parishioners don't like the fact that you work on Sunday. We think that's the Lord's Day. And I thought, you know what? I really would like a day off. Sounds good to me. But and I just crushed it. I had $1 million business. But now these kids come out of school, and they it's like, okay, you just studied 8 years to learn how to swim, and they want to walk around the swimming pool for 5 years, working here for a year, here for a year. And no matter where they work, they don't like it because the same reason you wanted to move out from your parents' house, you want to do your own thing. And you didn't go to 8 years of college to be an employee under some dentist and do what he says. And it just takes them 5 years to bust a move. Then here's someone like you. I mean, how many companies have you started in your lifetime? And even when they fail, I mean, after one failed because of the government, you're back in. Why are you fearless? I can just see you walking through the fire rock pit at a Tony Robbins deal, and then just sitting down in the middle of the fire pit and going to sleep. Why are you fearless? And why do they take 5 years to do what you and I would decide in like 8 minutes?
I think because for me, fear wasn't really an option, so I came from a background where my dad was an entrepreneur, and my dad went broke in the real estate bust of the late 70s, early 80s. And he died of a heart attack and left me at the age of 16 with no home. And I had to drop out of high school and get a job.
What city was this?
It was in Hastings.
In Hastings, Nebraska.
Hastings, Nebraska. So I dropped out of high school, and I had some bad years, but I finally figured it out. I went back to college. I got my degree. I got my master's degree at Thunderbird. And I had lost everything, at one point in my life. And so going forward, I knew what it was to lose everything, and I had lived through it, so I wasn't afraid of that anymore. And what I really wanted was to own my own destiny. And to me, I think there's always, just as you know, there are people who are who care more about freedom, and others who care more about security. And they make a lot of their decisions based on that, where that balance is in their life. For me, independence, charting my own course, has always been more important to me than the security of somebody else giving me a paycheck. So, and I trust myself. I made enough mistakes to know that I'm going to recover. I'm going to get back up, whatever happens. Like you, working 7 days a week, I don't mind putting in 3 shifts. I don't mind if I have to work on the weekend. When I'm feeling down, when I'm afraid, when things are freaking me out, I just start picking up the phone. I call, hey, I'm going to call this person because maybe they're going to have an answer, or I'm going to go and do some more research here. I'm an action person. And everything that feels bad in my world feels better when I take some steps to self-correct, to have another conversation, and to look back on my life and say, you know what? I know what it is not to have anything. And I survived that too. So I'm not going to be afraid of, a failure. I mean, I will tell you, failure doesn't feel good, right? Anybody who's been through a big failure, my company going down last year was crushing, but my response to it was, okay, what am I going to do? Talk to the FDA in my head all day long? Because I did that for a couple of weeks. Or am I going to take what I've learned and try to do the next thing better? So it's all I know how to do.
That's so cool. So my dad, I learned business because my dad, first 10 years of my life, he delivered rainbow bread to the grocery stores in Wichita, Kansas, and we were so damn poor we didn't know we were poor. And then Eisenhower came back after World War II and built all the interstates, which opened up the franchises. And he saved up his money and he bought a Sonic Drive-In franchise, and he had 5 in Wichita, Kansas.
My dad had two.
He what?
My dad had 2 Sonic franchises.
Was one in Childress, Texas? No. I mean, in Kearney, Nebraska?
Hastings and Grand Island.
Okay, so Roger Carpenter, Jim Williams, all those guys. So my dad had 5 in Wichita, and you learn what to do that your dad did, and you learn not to do what your dad did. But the 5 in Wichita, he had one layer of managers. He had an account, Carol, the accountant, and blah, blah. But he wanted to go national, just total. So his north was Abilene, Kansas, then Kearney, Nebraska. His south was Childress, Texas. His east was Louisville. So each one of those stores was my summer. So I spent one summer opening up the store in Abilene, Kansas. I spent one summer in Kearney, Nebraska. Best pheasant hunting in the world. I mean, my God, they jump out. They were so loud you'd almost drop your shotgun and run. And then south to Childress, and then to Louisville, which was the only place I'd ever got shot at in my life, because when I got there, I saw a tobacco field, and being from Kansas, it's like, well, I wanted to go rip out a couple of plants and throw them in the trunk to show everybody back home when it's a tobacco plant. And there was this shack, this 100-year-old shack, and I heard this, and it's like, that sounded like a shot. And I'm still looking at it, and hear another one, and then finally my friend says, dude, they're shooting at us. So we jumped in the car and drove off, and then we learned at the Sonic that they might have been growing things other than tobacco in the middle of the tobacco field. But my God, you just sound like I mean, how many people live in Hastings? I mean, is that a...
maybe 20,000. When I was there, I think the top population is like 15.
Yeah. Do you think that's a Midwestern thing that you and I have from Kansas and Nebraska that maybe you don't get growing up in L.A. or Miami or Beverly Hills? Or is that, that?
Well, there's definitely an expectation when you come from that farm country, at least as we did, where, I mean, my dad looked at kids as free labor, right? That wasn't like, my son.
Your dad had good vision.
Would expect, to get paid. My dad's like, hey, the weeds need to be pulled at this rental house over here, or, we need to paint the trim. So, and I don't know if you did this in Kansas, we detasseled corn in the summertime to make money. It's probably the worst job ever, where you walk these rows of corn in the heat and you're, dying and pulling, cutting these tassels off so they don't cross-pollinate. So, there was an expectation early on of work. It was never, summer was.
So your dad had 2 Sonic Drive-In franchises?
Yep.
In Hastings and where?
Grand Island.
Grand Island, Nebraska?
Yeah.
Where they have that bridge going, at the museum bridge across the highway?
That's Hastings.
That's Hastings? Damn.
Yep.
So your dad had to know my dad. Did you...
My dad had a big Sonic franchise. He loved. You know why my dad decided to get a Sonic franchise? Because he loved the Frito pie. He'd been to some.
Oh my God, it's the best.
Frito pie, and he's like, "We got to have that." Literally, yeah. And the fact that he died of a heart attack. The irony of that is not.
How old was he when he died of a heart attack?
48.
My dad was 61. It was 21 years ago yesterday, and that's why I have an Arnold Schwarzenegger modeling body because I grew up on footlong chili cheese coatings. What she's talking about, the Frito chili pie, it's better than anything. It's corn chips on the bottom, chili, and then cheese and onion, and then you put it in a steamer thing for a minute, and onion rings. And we thought we were so lucky, and I was the most popular kid in class because if you went home with Howie, we just walked to the Sonic and we eat anything you want. So me and Mark Bordlawn and all these guys, we just go there, and we thought we were the luckiest kids in the world. We had no idea we were eating arsenic and my gosh, but God, that was good food. So he died at 48?
He did.
Of a heart attack? And what percent of that do you think was genetics versus Sonic drive-in food?
I think that a lot of it was just a bad lifestyle and not paying attention to his health. I mean, so I'm 55, and when I made it past 48, it felt like an accomplishment.
I know it's been hanging over me all my life. My dad was 61, and my mom's dad was 61, and my dad's dad was 61. So all three friends, my dad and the two grandpas, all died at 61. So that's why I'm always so excited, because I think I only have like 2 years left and I'm out of here. I mean, I'm 58. It's like
my money, just go to Vegas and roll it all. No, I think that, I think my dad definitely had some genetic issues. He wasn't, healthy, didn't exercise. He was very stressed out. It was a combination of things.
Yeah, I might be your dad. Oh my gosh. Hey, I hate to ask the girl question on you because you're a girl, but I get asked this all along. When you look at the DSOs, where they don't have male owner-operators, independent dentists, they have employees, it's undeniable that 2/3 of all their employees are girls. And some people think, and I grew up with 5 sisters, so, whatever that's worth. Some people think that since girls reproduce, we both donate a gamete, but the women incubate them. And because the women are the incubators, that they might say, I really don't want my own dental office. I don't want my own business. I'd rather go work for you and do the 8 to 5 thing, go home and be Mr. Mom. Do you think that is just sexism because they're incubators and not gametes? Do you think that going from all the dentists being boys to now it's 50-50 at every graduating class? In fact, most dental schools have more girls than boys. Do you think that going from all boys to all girls will mean that we'll go from all independent owner operators to now all employees?
Well, I don't see that happening. I don't see it going to from independent operators to all employees. I do think that dentistry is a family-friendly profession for a lot of women, who they want to have that freedom, they want to have that independence. I think that one of the bigger issues for a lot of dentists coming out of school right now is debt, right? So it's just easier to go work for somebody else in the short term than to take on more debt if you've already loaded up your, yourself with debt just to get through school. I think for women, it's harder to take risks. I think a lot of female entrepreneurs that I know feel this way too. It's one thing for a man to take a risk, but women are supposed to be grounded. You're supposed to hold the house together. You're supposed to, provide this level of security for your family. And I think that is where one area where the DSOs have become appealing to female dentists is that, you don't have that extra stress. You're already dealing with many times, not always, a family, kids, a house. Do you really need to deal with? I can tell you as an entrepreneur, when you add a spouse, children, a house, a school, and now you've got employees, it's a lot. It's a lot. So I can see where the DSO model can be pretty appealing to some female dentists.
And let me just remind everyone that
I don't want to be sexist either. So
now, did you ever work at the Sonic?
I did not. I worked at Burger King. My dad wouldn't hire me.
Oh my God. When my dad, oh my God. But anyway, my oldest son, Eric, when he got his first job, it was so romantic. I never even saw it coming. He said, Dad, I got my first job. And I said, really? I didn't know you were looking at where at? He said, Dad, Sonic. I'm third generation Ferran Sonic. But my God, when you said dentistry is a very family-friendly business to be a parent and raise a family, I mean, you know what the hours were at Sonic Drive-In? 9 in the morning to midnight, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
And I only saw my father at work. I mean, if you want, but that wasn't bad. I mean, because I get to go down there and eat a Frito chili pie. All the car hops were girls on roller skates. I mean, how cool is that?
It was really fun.
I just loved it. You're the idol of your life. He looked like a conductor in an orchestra running this restaurant. But my God, the hours were just, if you were alive and you were awake, you were at work at a restaurant. And then when you compare that to dentistry, where it's Monday through Thursday, 8 to 5 and a half day on Friday, you can own your own business. So I just want to end this. I know you gave me an hour, and I already took that, and I hope to get Frederick. You said it's pronounced Vidu.
Like voodoo, but Vidu.
Vidu. Love to get an orthodontist on here from Germany. That'd be great. But I just want you to close up. I know these girls, and they're 25, and they're 400. They always talk about $400,000 in debt, which doesn't even make sense to me because my parents had 7 kids, and in the United States of America, to have a kid from birth to 17, not going to college, is $213,000. So if you're $400,000 in debt, it's 2 kids. And then you say to Idiom, well, how many kids did your mom have? She goes, 4. Okay, well, you're going to have 2, and you're going to have some student loan debt. And then if she thinks that's a lot of money, my student loan debt was $87,000. My divorce was $3.8 million cash. That's 43 times more. So if you think you have a lot of student loans, I can't wait till you get divorced and you get the little piece of paper that says how many. In fact, they shouldn't even tell you the amount. They should just tell you how many times more money it was than your total student loans. But she's living in fear. She tells me she worked there, and it might be my office or a great friend of mine, but but it wasn't good enough because dentists, you couldn't get 2 dentists to agree that today is Wednesday, let alone how to run a dental office. And she goes from job to job to job to job. She's on her 5th job. She totally wants to open up her own office, but she's just living in fear. What could you tell her how can she get over her own fear and just open her own damn dental office?
I would say that having worked for other people and having worked for myself, I would rather be in control. It's less scary to me if I'm driving the ship than sitting back and watching somebody else drive the ship. And if you just jump into it, right? Don't let that wall of fear keep you from seeing what that opportunity can be. Because it always feels safer over here, but it isn't necessarily. Right? Because you're not going to be subjected to other things, right? I mean, I'll give you an example. So during the Great Recession, 2007, I sold my company in 2007. 2008, I'm working at 3M. I saw people that had worked there for 30 years get laid off. These folks had no idea how to go on job search or to find something new, right? So if you think that a corporate situation is always going to be safer, I think you're wrong. And I think you should just trust yourself. Just do it. You're going to have more financial opportunity than you are if you are, relying on somebody else to make these decisions for you. So I would tell them, just jump, just do it. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? Right? So
it's just like an airplane. Everybody's afraid to fly an airplane because they can't drive the plane. That's all it is. And then you say, well, it's a lot safer up here than down on the interstate, but they'd rather be on the interstate because they're driving the car. And if they own the dental, and a lot of stuff you can't even measure or make sense. Like you go into some dental offices, they all listen to country music and they go bowling. And then you go to another office and it's all the Rolling Stones and they go eat edibles after work. It's all these different cultures. And so when you own your own office and you just want to collect country western bowlers, it's just, and if you can't stand another person that you're an employee with, you're stuck. But if you own the business, you
You're
can
out.
hopefully just collect people that you actually enjoy working with, which is a huge difference. But man, you're just fearless, and it sounds like a lot of that at the end of the day was because your dad died when you were 16.
Yeah. I already faced how bad it can be and realized that you can survive. And I think that's the one thing that I certainly wouldn't recommend, parents dying young.
Well, I just want to ask one question on behalf of my two older sisters. When your dad died at 16, why didn't you just join the nunnery like they did?
I think I like men too much for that.
Oh my gosh.
The other direction. I went the sex, drugs, and rock and roll direction for a while.
Yeah. And I bet you have no regrets there. Hey, Lea A, Ellermeier, CEO at 2C MedTech and 2C Dental AG. My God, what an honor to have you come on the show. Love to get a follow-up from Friedrich Vidu. From a German orthodontist. Thank you so much for all that you've done. Thank you for being fearless. Thank you for just always cruising at 30,000 feet above the ground fearlessly. It was just an honor to podcast you. And by the way, I forgot to mention, you got to get her book. I posted on Dental Town. There's already a couple people on there that love it. It's called Finding the Exit with Lea A. Ellermeier. I'm sorry. Please tell us about that book.
So the Finding the Exit is it's my story. It's framed around starting and selling my company, Lingualcare, basically kind of getting past the fear of starting your own company. But I also tell the backstory of, my dad, growing up that way, kind of losing everything as a 16-year-old and coming back from that. And then, starting and selling a company while being a mom. I start the book on the day that we sold the company. And to your point, Howard, the morning of my sale to 3M, I got a divorce at 8:30. I was at the courthouse signing the papers. And the company sold at 11 o'clock in the morning. So 3 hours and some change later.
So did that help your alimony? Or you got divorced first and then you sold, so that was a good thing? Or did you get the money and then have to...
The only way I was able to get the divorce was to pony up half the cash.
Did you have to sell the company to pay out the divorce? I mean, I know a lot of dentists who had to sell their dental office just because their wife wanted cashed out for half, so the only way they could do that is sell the whole thing. Did you just sell the company to be able to cash out of your marriage?
I had other reasons for selling the company. But let's just say it didn't hurt.
It didn't work?
It didn't hurt. I was either going to have to give up half the stock or, either way I was going to lose it, whether it was the equity or it was actually the money from the sale. So, that for me, and I talk about this in the book, when it came down to it, I could either have gotten, cash up front or stock and a payout. And I wanted the cash up front because I just wanted to be done financially.
And I want you to know that I feel really, really guilty and shameful right now, smiling to see a woman going through this shit too. I mean, for so many years, it was just men paying off all the alimony. I'll never forget this woman, dentist, came out to me. She could have torn down the whole building because she just found out what her husband did is he quit his job 1 year before he filed for divorce because he knew in Arizona if he was unemployed for 1 year and 1 day, she'd have to pay alimony to this banker. I mean, a very successful banker, and he just wanted to take a year off and play, work out, do whatever, and then knew he'd get 8 years of alimony and then got a job back at the banking like the next day. And I'm like, right on, this is awesome, because everyone knows it's a big scam, and maybe if enough women go through your pain, we'll finally end the alimony thing. It's just another racket brought to you by the 1 million attorneys of the United States, charging out $1 trillion a year and regulating us to paralysis since 1776. My gosh, And final question. Why should a 25-year-old dentist who just got out of dental school read Finding the Exit?
I think you'll find some inspiration there. Because every dentist is an entrepreneur. And I think that's actually one of the reasons why I really love dentistry, is because it's full of entrepreneurs and interesting people. And I think that for anybody who wants I've had people tell me it's a really good read, that they couldn't put it down, because I believe I am a good writer. And that it's, it'll make you feel good about the business that you just got into. I mean, dentistry is a wonderful thing. You serve a lot of people, and you have an opportunity to create your own life, right? As an entrepreneur, as a dental entrepreneur. And so I hope people will find that inspirational. So,
And I don't like the fact that the lawyers took over the whole government. I mean, obviously the Supreme Court, that's a gimme, but the whole Congress and the Senate going all the way back, it's been 90% plus all lawyers. And I don't like listening to physicians on the healthcare debate because they're employees. You know who I trust the most? The dentists. They own their land. They own their dentists. They own their building. They employed their staff. I love dentists. And if anybody was going to solve the healthcare problem, it should be the doctors of dentistry who own their land and building, employees, and understand regulation. And I just think if everybody in that Congress was a dentist, it would just be so much better than everybody being a lawyer. And never trust a physician talking about healthcare policy when they've never paid rent or filled out, or FICA matching for a single employee in their whole life. They don't get it. They're usually disconnected. But Lea A, Ellermeier, thank you so much for coming on the show. And if you still got that email, send it to your orthodontist buddy in Germany. And how do they say orthodontist? Kiefer Pade?
Zahnarzt. Keeper orthoped.
Say it again.
Dentistry is Zahnarzt, and an orthodontist is a Kiefer orthoped.
Kiefer orthoped. Well, tell that Kiefer orthoped I can't wait to meet him on Dentistry Uncensored. Thank you so much, and tell Will he's a very lucky man, and I hope the Cardinals beat the Cowboys mercilessly the next time they meet up. So on that note, have a rockin' hot day.
Thank you.